Hi everyone, so today in SPAG we are going to be looking at writing suspense and mystery texts. So what creates suspense and what leaves the reader on the edge of their seat wanting more, because that is what we are aiming for in our writing this week. So what is suspense? Have a little think. What is suspense? Authors attempt to build suspense in stories to try and have a particular effect on the reader. But what is that effect? If it's suspense, do they want them to be happy and have a big grin on the face? Do they want them to be riddled with anxiety and worry? Or do they want them just so excited that they're on the edge of the seat and they can't stop reading? And I know that's how some of you feel when you're reading the Phoenix Code at the minute. And I pause you at certain chapters and wait for the next day. And I know I've had loads of comments with, "No, miss, I don't want to stop here. I want to keep on reading," which is amazing to see that you're also into the writing of the Phoenix Code. And why that author is so good at creating suspense. We want to read on, we want to know what happens next. So, what feeling does suspense give a reader? And no, it says talk to your partner, but if there's anybody around in your house you can have that conversation with, or you can just have a little note down and think to yourself, what feelings does that create? I would say it creates either excitement, it creates a bit of worry for your reader, for your characters. You want to know, they want to know what's happening next to their characters that they're so invested in. So when reading stories that include suspense and mystery, readers can feel a lot of different emotions. They could feel scared, that they're a bit nervous to turn and know what's happening next, specifically in like horror genres. We've got worried or anxious, that could be in a thriller, that they don't know what's going to be coming. Excited and thrilled, that they're on the edge of the seat and they just need to keep on turning those pages. Goosebumps or shivers, again with the horror. Concerned as to what happened next, and they are definitely keen to read on, and that is our key this week. We are wanting our reader to read on. They've got such a powerful image and they're so invested in our story of Howard Carter going down into the tomb. They just need to read that next paragraph. So we're going to think about how to create suspense. We've got a short piece of suspense writing. I want you to read it through and think about what makes you feel suspenseful and tense whilst reading it. What language features and layout features are in this text, when the use of grammar do they use, that make you a little bit on edge when you're reading it. So, as you can see here, some of the features that are picked out are some figurative language in that dark orange. Similes, metaphors. Obviously, some more figurative language that we can think of is personification, to create that idea and image in our reader's head. We've got the uses of ellipsis, which is our ... in the green. If you can see that anywhere, I can't really see it on mine. It might be on the next page, but definitely our ... What happens next? Short, snappy sentences are small sentences. Her skin tightened. Her eyes were wide. Now we could really use that as one sentence if we add a conjunction in there. Her skin was tightened as her eyes widened, or and her eyes widened. But because we're changing it and we want short, snappy sentences, the author has made it into two short sentences. Her palms were sweaty. Again, these three sentences could have all been linked together really easily, but the author has made a critical choice that to create suspense, he's going to do it in three sentences individually. And then finally, we've got use sentences that appeal to the senses, which is a huge one this week in our writing. We are needing to make sure our writer and our reader are invested in the story by making sure and opening up those senses so the reader feels immersed into the story. So now we're going to think about the features and why they help create suspense. So have a little think first before I give you the answers. What is it that figurative language, similes, metaphors, personification, what is it about them that creates suspense? Same with ellipsis, snappy sentences, and the senses. Pause, write down your ideas. So the similes and metaphors add further description, which helps the reader paint a detailed picture. So it's that use of imagery. Ellipsis shows a long pause, so that ... It makes the reader think what's going to happen next. It could be before we start a new paragraph or a new chapter, and it makes the reader want to read on. The short, snappy sentences are read quickly, and they're read with pace, so one after another. He stopped. He stared into the distance. He heard a sound behind him. You're like, it makes the reader want to breathe and want to read on, and you're so invested in the story. So easily, those sentences could have all been linked together with some coordinating or subordinating conjunctions, but they're chosen to be short, snappy sentences. It makes them feel like they're panicking or breathing more quickly, which is something that happens naturally in your body when you are feeling tense or suspenseful. And then finally, using the sentences that appeal to your senses, which is the huge one this week. And the senses give a detailed point of view, so it makes your reader feel like they're in the story. They can relate to the smells and the sounds that are hearing, and that all builds that tension in your reader. So, there's many professional authors that write suspense writing. There's loads that you've looked at already in class. We looked at a little bit when we were doing The Children of Winter. We wanted to read on at some points of that. It was built up to suspense, built our anxieties up. So can you list or think of or make a bubble map of some authors you know, or maybe that you've read, or some books that made you feel on the edge of your seat? And definitely the first one that you can put to your list is the Phoenix Code that we're reading right now, because every chapter you want to read on more. We've all known that Cleo has fallen down that hole, and it finished on the chapter where we didn't know if she was going to fall or if Ryan was going to save her. So that can definitely be on your list. So finally, you have an image on your screen right now. It looks like a path in a wood, a dark forest leading to something, a murky house in the distance. There's one light coming from the top room that you can see pouring out into the shadows. What I want you to do is have a think about, if your character was on that path right now, what would they be thinking? And I want you to write it down. What would they be smelling? It could be the mossy, dewy bits of leaves on the ground. It might be a smell that's coming from the house. It might be a smell that's in the forest. What would they taste? So it might be the fresh air that they're tasting on their lips. There might be some ash or some smoke in the air that's tickling their lips. What could they be feeling? So it could be the cold air between their fingers. If they crouch down to feel the floor, what would it feel like? You've got the different of the comparatives between the path and then the forest floor. What would they feel? What would they hear? Which is a massive one. There's loads of animals that would be in the forest. It could be birds tweeting, bats flapping. They could hear something coming from the house, maybe a scream or a whisper, or they could hear the wind howling between the trees. I want loads of ideas for these ones. And finally, what can they see? So that's your image in front of you. How would you use everything we've just spoke about? So ellipsis, similes, personification, descriptive language. How would you use them? I want you to make a note for each of these senses, at least 3 or 4 bullet points for each sense about what they would be doing and how their sense would be heightened at the thought of your character being in this setting. I want you to write it in your books for me and then send me a picture.